are trying to weaken information commission. The government has stopped maintaining data on consumer household expenditure as well, because it's inconvenient for them to keep that data. People wanted to know the PM CARES fund that was set up to help people tide through the COVID disaster, how the money is being spent. Unfortunately, that sort of information has not been provided by the government. Well, the Right to Information law was passed in India in 2005 as a result of a very, very strong grassroots movement where people from across the country came together from different places, urban slums, rural areas, remote parts of the country, to ask for their right to information, to ensure that they are actually able to get the right that is fundamentally theirs. And the Supreme Court has upheld the right to information to be a fundamental right of the people of the country. Every year, around 40 to 60 lakh RTI applications are filed in our country. These applications are filed by people everywhere asking for their basic rights and entitlements. I'll give you an example. In one of the slum settlements in Delhi, where water shortage is a very big problem, people said that they wanted to use the right to information law to access information about how their MLA, their local representative, was spending his local area development funds. And when the information came out under the RTI law, it showed that every year the MLA was spending close to 70% of his funds on constructing fountains in that constituency. So when people were armed with that information, they went up to the MLA and said, we come to you every time and you say you don't have funds. And now we realize that you were spending the money, which was supposed to be for our welfare, on constructing fountains in a water scarce constituency. So clearly the elected representative had no choice and immediately got water pipes laid in the slums in the constituency, and people started getting water in their homes. So we have seen how access to information for people in the country has meant access to other rights and entitlements. So people have used it for rations, for pensions, for medicines in hospitals. People have asked for information about PM CARES. People wanted to know the PM CARES fund that was set up to help people tide through the COVID disaster, how the money is being spent. Unfortunately, that sort of information has not been provided by the government. The group called Satark Nagrik Sangathan, which is a collective working in several slum settlements in Delhi. And I remember when the law was passed, the Right to Information law was passed, in one of the meetings we were discussing it, and a woman stood up and she said, "Ration to milta nahi hai, सूचना का क्या करेंगे?" Basically meaning that we don't even get our subsidized food grains under the public distribution system. What are we going to do with information? And we realized that people are not looking for information for the sake of information. They want information if they can actually hold the government accountable for what they are supposed to get and is being denied to them. So we said, why do you not get your rations? And her response was that the shopkeeper tells them that their share of ration has not been sent by the government. So the first set of RTI applications that were filed in Delhi on the public distribution system were filed by these women who asked for the records of their ration shops. And when they got the information under the law, the stock register clearly showed that ration was reaching every month to the shops. So for the first time, people said that they had proof of corruption. But most importantly, people started getting their rations and they understood the power of information. even during COVID, we saw that people, when they were being denied their basic entitlements and rights, they used the right to information law. Gautam Giri is one of those people who lost his mother. She was the only one earning an income in his house, and he had to buy in black medicines, oxygen cylinders at prices that were many times that were in the market. And when she died, his family had no way of any kind of earning any kind of wages. The government announced that they would give 50,000 rupees to everyone who had, the family of people who had died during COVID, but he got nothing despite repeated visits to the government office. He finally filed an RTI application. Immediately 50,000 rupees were transferred to his account. So people have also understood that in an unresponsive, unaccountable governance setup, the right to information is in many senses their only hope. If we look at the way in which the government has answered questions on the number of people who died due to oxygen shortage, when they were asked this question in Parliament, they just said, we have no information. The government has stopped maintaining data on consumer household expenditure as well, because it's inconvenient for them to keep that data. So if we look at, for example, the PM Cares Fund, which was set up to help people during the COVID pandemic, the government is saying that they will not give any information on how the funds are being spent, where the funds came from, and they're saying that that's because PM Cares Trust is not a public authority. The government has brought electoral bonds saying that all the money that comes through electoral bonds for political parties will not be disclosed. The sources will not be disclosed to the people of the country, the voters of the country. If people don't get information under the right to information law, there is an appellate process, which is that people can go to an independent information commission. Now, what the governments are doing, and we are seeing that increasingly, is that they are trying to weaken information commissions. Now, the central government has amended the law to say that they will fix, the central government will fix the salaries and tenures and pensions of the information commissioners, which basically means that if any commissioner directs the government to provide information that the central government doesn't approve of, then their pensions could be adversely impacted, their terms of service could be adversely impacted. Since 2014, when the BJP government came to power on the plank of anti-corruption, promising a transparent and accountable government, not a single information commissioner has been appointed to the Central Information Commission unless people have approached the courts and the courts have directed the government to make the appointments. So we have a situation where people retire, commissioners retire in due course of time, but the posts are just not filled unless the courts are approached. This is a huge problem because not having information commissioners appointed in a timely manner basically means that cases are pending in very large numbers in commissions. We just recently brought out a report, and in that what we see is that more than 255,000 appeals and complaints are pending in various commissions in the country. And one of the primary reasons is that appointments are not made to information commissions on time, and therefore there is no one to look at those and dispose of those appeals and complaints. We know of so many old age people who applied for pensions, did not get it, asked for information, and were made to wait for 4 or 5 years for their case to be heard in the commission. And by the time their hearing came, they had already passed away. So information delayed is information denied. There was a very important, significant ruling given by the Supreme Court of India in February 2019, where the court said that The appointments to information commissions in the country must be made in a timely and transparent manner. So there are the right kind of commissioners doing their work and people can actually realize their right to information. And yet we are seeing that governments, including the central government, unfortunately, are not making those appointments. Currently, there are 3 state information commissions that are totally defunct in the country. And we are seeing that people who use the right to information law are also not being spared. Ever since the law was passed in 2005, more than 90 people have been killed simply for asking for information and exposing corruption and wrongdoing. Very recently, we had a case where in Bihar, somebody who was asking under the right to information law information about land encroachments on government land was killed, was murdered, and this we are seeing happen very regularly, unfortunately. And there are many people who are being incriminated under false cases simply because they are being asking questions and holding the government accountable. There is a basic issue of lack of political will to protect these people.